So I think let's talk about the California data landscape for pathways. And before we sort of launch into that, I wanted to share this list: CalPath Plus, CTE Launch Board, CAPMA, the Chancellor's Office Data Mart, and these other resources. Put them there for you because when we go to regions, what we often find is that oftentimes very few people sort of are able to articulate what is in these systems and why people are using them and who has access to them. And all of these that we've noted here can be really useful in your construction and maintenance of regional career pathways. That said, what I'd like for you to do is take a look at, for those of you who can see it in the chat box, there's a link to the folder where we have some of the handouts for today's webinar. And we'd like you to go to the California Data Landscape handout. And what I will do in the minute or two while you're doing that is try to pull that document up so that we can look at it together. So here's the document you'd be looking for in the folder that you have access to. So what NITI did was discuss some of the major challenges that have surfaced among CCPT and other regional leaders around data for pathways. While we know, again, a statewide longitudinal database would really address some of the connecting, what we know is that it takes a significant amount of time to get that. And what we want to do is, again, try to help you do the best you can with what you have now. So to start thinking about this, as a first step, we thought it might be helpful to give folks a document that has a brief summary of what different common data systems, portals, or dashboards are available in California that can support your regional data pathways work. Essentially what this document does, it summarizes selected data management systems, portals, and dashboards on career pathways in the K-12, post-secondary, and workforce development. It's not meant to be entirely comprehensive. Rather, what we're hoping is that it will help you and your stakeholders in the region get a better understanding, an overview, if you will, of the various resources that they can use to support the pathways work. And so you'll see on the far left side, we sort of, in alphabetical order, got data systems, portals, or dashboards. Going from left to right, you'll see that we sort of note which sectors data are included in these portals: K-12, community college, or employers and workforce. Then we note whether these data systems or portals require an MOU, and then who with. A list of acronyms is on the very end, bottom of the document. And then what data, again, an overview of the data relevant for regional pathways, who can access each of these data systems, and then if these data systems are sort of connected to reporting requirements at the state or the federal level. So I'm hoping all of you who call in are actually also able to look at the WebEx so that you can see the document and just take a look at it. Again, the goal is, not necessarily to make everyone fully sort of well-versed on every single system that's in California, but for you and your regional partners to get a sense of what's out there, what's available to them, what's accessible to them. At times we find that, community college folks who are very familiar with the CTE Launch Board, their K-12 partners don't realize they too could potentially get access to some of that data and how. And so this document can potentially be useful for just having some of those sorts of conversations about what data people have and really enabling them to come together to talk about it. I'm going to go back to the WebEx, the primary WebEx, and turn off this document, but again, I hope you'll take a look at it. And what I'd love for you to do is to type in any questions you might have about this document or any sort of feedback you might have just in looking at it quickly. So I do have one comment. It says, we're acquiring and tracking data for CCPT, Perkins, and CTIG, and we use the CalPads uploads to send to CDE. However, one language limitation on sending this data to CDE is the language of articulation and dual enrollment. Our high school has over 16 dual enrollment courses with the community college. The language CDE uses on CalPads reporting is only in the term articulation. This is just an example of one of the realities of challenges that's happening. So that's super helpful, not just in terms of unearthing a challenge, but when we think about sort of using the different systems that folks are using to capture articulation or dual enrollment data, we do need to sort of get at how people are measuring it, and then of course at the state level. One thing I didn't mention earlier is that the CRP Alliance is certainly interested in hearing from you all on the ground and helping you, like I said, do the best you can with what you have now. We are also going to be using the information that we're gathering to provide some insight, to share what we're learning with folks at the state level. We certainly aren't making promises as to, those making changes immediately, but we do think it will be valuable to share what we're learning in the field. And so again, I encourage you all, if there are other challenges you want to note, if there are thoughts you're having on having looked at this California data landscape document, please feel free to put them in the chat box. I have these questions on the slide, which are big ones, but just to what extent do you know, you yourself and your partners in your region, are you familiar with these sector-specific systems and portals? Do you know how to access them? And then the bigger question is really around, are there anywhere you or your regional partners could use training? As Mary Rauner noted at sort of the top of the webinar, the CRP Alliance does have an opportunity to provide trainings, and so whether it's trainings on just a brief overview or in-depth on how to use certain systems, we're open to that, and again, encourage you all to chat that into us, send us an email when we give it at the end, or when you complete a survey on this particular training. One thing I did want to make sure that I noted also on this document is that on the document for the California data landscape, some of these systems are more compliance focused. So for your K-12 partners, that might be CalPads. For your community college partners, that might be using something like iPads. Some of these systems are voluntary. The California College Guidance Initiative, folks who might be participating in the Core Data Collaborative, CalPass Plus, or the National Student Clearinghouse, those data systems are voluntary and require sort of membership. And then there are some cross-sector data systems, which you'll see sort of noted by check marks in the columns for, K-12 and community college, and those might be the National Student Clearinghouse, the Launch Board, CalPass Plus, and CAPMA. And so hopefully this all can be helpful to you as you think about which systems might be, available, to your partners, and start turning the wheels on how people might be using these more effectively, potentially.